Assalamualaikum, sir.
Walaikum assalam.
Thank you very much, everyone, for coming to our today's first webinar series, first episode. We will start on exactly 8 p.m. So thank you very much for your patience. Greetings, everyone. Thank you for joining our today's webinar. This webinar is the first episode of the webinar series that will be continue to disseminate knowledge on specific topics by distinguished faculty members and practitioners of that field around the world. We reformers envision to give Bangladesh a new scholarly face that the world values. Our mission is to bring researchers together through knowledge sharing and to innovate and enhance productivity and technological advancement of Bangladesh. The title of our today's webinar is Importance of Data Science. Today we have Dr. Rittika Shamsuddin as our guest speaker. Thank you, ma'am, for your time. Dr. Shamsuddin is very passionate about computer science and programming and has been an active advocate for computer science, especially among women, since her PhD years. She believes that programming is a way of thinking and can be taught and learned through the use of newer technology-based curricula. Some existing and successful proponents of this strategy are Elise Tree, Zybooks, and Code.org. Her past initiatives involve being part of Women Who Compute during her PhD years in Dallas, USA. Some of her current initiatives that can be found in her teaching and awards. Dr. Rittika Shamsuddin aims to improve communication between researchers in the field of computer science, biology, and medicine learning via knowledge sharing and developing algorithms and experiments which will increase the interpretability and generalizing ability of various machine learning and artificial intelligence models. Without further delay, let's start the webinar. I'm requesting everyone to mute their microphone during the session. And if any participants have any questions or comments, then they are requested to drop them in the chat box. Also, you'll given the opportunity to ask about your queries later during the webinar. I'm now requesting Dr. Rittika Shamsuddin ma'am to start the session. Please, Dr. Shamsuddin.
Thank you so much for the kind introduction. So give me some time to share my screen with you and set this on. Okay, can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
And can you hear me and can you see the laser pointer?
Yes, it's clear.
Okay, great. So thank you all for coming to this talk and for inviting me to your webinar. I'm very honored. And as you can see, today I'll be talking about the importance of data science. And data science have been evolving at such a rapid pace that there's a lot to talk about. So all I'll be doing in this presentation in the 1 hour is kind of briefly give you an overview of what data science has done for us and what are some of the caveats that still needs to be addressed in data science and how that kind of ties in with where we are in society and in the world right now. So since most of you don't know me very well, I'll start with a little about me. So currently I'm an assistant professor in the computer science department at Oklahoma State. And as you can see that I have been specializing in computer science, data science and biology since my early days. And right now I have over 10 years of experience doing research in healthcare informatics and data science. And my research focus mainly focuses on developing explainable machine learning models and developing tools for data synthesis to kind of apply it in the field of healthcare informatics. And here I kind of focus on the 4 different healthcare informatics subfields that I'm currently working on. And the reason I'm focusing on this is because I'm going to use it as an example later in the talk, and I'm going to explain it a bit more in context of data science. Okay, so let's start with what is data science. As most of you will already know, that data science is a multidisciplinary approach, and we take this approach to extract actionable insights from data. And this involves, we can apply advanced data analysis. And our main objective here is to reveal patterns that are present in the data so that we can make informed conclusions, right? And the main important aspect of this definition of data science are the words multidisciplinary, the use of large volume of data, and revealing patterns to make informed decisions or conclusions. Okay, and here on the right, you will see that I'm trying to kind of define data science using this Venn diagram, where you can see that you absolutely need statistics and computer science to do data science because they're the tool that drives data science forward. But the other aspect that often people don't talk about is domain knowledge, okay? And domain knowledge can come from any application field. It can be healthcare, it can be energy, it can be business, it can be policies, it can be psychology, it can be anything, okay? And we will touch on this once again a little bit later. For the time being, let's talk about the different areas and the different ways that data science has helped us so far, right? So data science can help us with forecasting, it can help us with dealing with pandemics, it can help us make better education systems, it can help us with resource management, and this can range from labor to capital. You have also seen data science extensively used in entertainment, for example, recommendation systems in Netflix, and of course, technology all over the place. And the other reason, like, the way data science is progressing, like, if you are a data scientist, you are guaranteed to find a job, like somewhere in some company. And here I have a short video that kind of gives you another overview of what why data science is important. And as you can see, this is like basically an advertisement of a data science program by an universities, but it drives home the point that I'm trying to make nonetheless. So let's take a look at what the video has to say. Let's see, maybe give me a second. Looks like the video is not playing. Give me a second to figure this part out.
Why data science? Everything we do generates data, and every new technology used to capture this data brings with it even more opportunities to extract knowledge, to learn, to grow, and to create change. However, right now, there is a continued demand for data scientists to analyze the huge and growing amount of data that's being captured. Data science is the process of extracting value from data through reproducible and auditable processes. Through this process, data scientists can present actionable insights that decision makers can trust. This means that important questions relating to any business, organization, society, or the world, which otherwise may never have been asked, can now be answered by data. Increasingly, data science is a critical job, and the UBC Master of Data Science.
Okay, so I'm not going to play the entire video because like then it goes on to advertise the degree, and that wasn't my point. But I think the video made the point I was trying to make very clear, right? Because the reason we care about data science, it's very clear, right? In a nutshell, it is because data science allows us to solve problem and handle problem that we never thought would be possible to handle, right? And the other thing, once again, like you heard, that it helps us make educated decisions, and like, it is really affecting, it can affect an individual, it can affect a company, it can affect a country, it can affect the entire world, right? So that's the influence, or that's the power of data science as we are seeing it today. Okay, so let's go into like, the process of data science. What does it involve, or what does it entail? Okay, and here, right in this slide, I am providing a very simplified view of what data science, the data science process includes. And as you can see, the first step, we have data, we analyze the data, and then we have product. Okay, and as you can see, it is this product that is most important to us, or that makes data science so huge. Okay, so let's just look at some of the products that data science has given us so far. So one of the product that you may have heard about is home assistant systems. So by a raise of hand, like by using the reaction button in Zoom, how many of you have heard about Alexa, Siri, or the Google Home Assistant system? Just by a raise of hand. So if you can use the reaction button. Okay, I see few hands. I am seeing few hands. Excellent. And basically, these home assistants are, and how many of you have watched Iron Man? Once again, by a show of hand, how many of you have watched Iron Man? So if you have watched Iron Man, you know what Jarvis is, right? Jarvis is basically this computerized software that can handle, that can do immense things, starting from turning the light on and off in the room to making, analyzing the news, right? Compiling news from different sources and making conclusions. And home assistants, the Alexa, they're the most closest things we have to Jarvis. Okay, and they are getting more and more popular, and they're being used. They're becoming more and more popular in current household uses. Okay, and then how many of you use Google Translate, right? For someone who has been using, as someone who has been using Google Translate over years, I cannot tell you just how accurate Google Translate has gotten over the last 5 to 10 years. And the only reason for that increase in accuracy is because Google is crunching a large amount of data from different languages, which allows it to be that accurate. Same with weather forecasting. Once again, weather forecasting has become a lot more accurate than it was a few years ago. And once again, the only reason is the huge amount of data that people are crunching. Okay, and one of the new things that is upcoming, or is, I mean, it's already in place. People don't know, may not know about it, and it's called virtual investment assistants. And these are basically AI, which are giving people financial advice: which stock to buy, which stock to sell, where to invest, where to put your money. That's already there. The other, another product of data science is how we are discovering drugs, right? Data science has completely changed how we discover and how we find new drugs. Another product of data science would be medical home monitoring, especially for senior citizens. So very soon there might come a time when you are no longer required to go to the hospital for regular checkup. You will be wearing biosensors, or you'll have access to biosensors, and all the data that the medical personnel or the doctor needs to know will be transmitted to the doctor without you ever being physically there in the hospital. And then there is all this other bunch of plethora of other products, right? The examples I showed here are just few examples of the products of data science. And there are all these other products, plethora of products, like every app you have on your iPhone or on your Android right now is churning or analyzing data using techniques from data science on some level, okay? And not to mention that, because data has become such an integral part of our life, it has led to this plethora of other softwares and other technology to handle that data. It has it is literally changing. Data and data science has literally seeped through almost every crack in our daily lives, whether we realize it or not. Okay, so once again, like I said before, the reason data science is so important is because of the product that it makes available or accessible to people. And at the beginning of this process is data. Okay, so what that means is that, or as I like to say it, that data is the, okay, or as the World Economic Forum likes to put it, that data will be the new currency very soon. Okay, and data is king, or data will be the new currency, are literally saying the same thing in different ways. And so let's put that in context. So let's just see why data is the king or the new currency. So if you remember the first industrial revolution, it happened because we learned to harvest the power of water and steam to mechanize production. The second industrial revolution happened because we learned to harness the electric power for mass production. The third industrial revolution happened because we learned to utilize electronics and information technology to automate production. And now soon it is expected that data science is going to make way for the fourth industrial revolution, which kind of builds on the third, because the fourth industrial revolution is still a digital revolution. But there are three aspects that there are three aspects that differentiates the third industrial revolution and the fourth industrial revolution, okay? And most of them has to do with data and the technology behind it. So what are those three characterizing as what are those three aspects that characterize the fourth industrial revolution? Okay, the first is velocity. Okay, and by velocity I mean the velocity with which data is being produced on a daily basis or on every second of every day, and also the velocity or the processing speed at which the data can now be processed. Okay, and this processing speed and data generation is evolving at an exponential rate. Okay, and then the second characteristic is the scope. Okay, data science and the products of data science can influence or has the ability to influence every industry in every country. It doesn't matter what kind of country or how small the country is. Okay, and it can transform, and it has the ability to transform the entire production process, management, and governance systems. Okay, and finally, the third point is systems impact, or in short, we can call it what we know as technology. And due to the processing power, storage capacity of like the technology and the computers that are currently feasible or available to people, artificial intelligence, Internet of Things are like, becoming so commonplace that it is becoming accessible to billions and billions of people around the world at a very fast pace. Okay, and these three characteristics sets the upcoming fourth industrial revolution from the third industrial revolution. Okay, so now that we have seen the three characteristics, and now that we know that artificial intelligence and which is literally like, a big branch of computer science can play such a huge role in this fourth industrial revolution, let's look at an example, right? Just one example of what artificial intelligence can give us, and hopefully I'll be able to play it.
As self-driving cars grow towards becoming a more realistic mode of transportation, there are a lot of exciting new possibilities.
Oh, and before I play this video, I just want you to kind of keep an open mind to the pros and cons of having self-driven cars.
Self-driving cars grow towards becoming a more realistic mode of transportation. There are a lot of exciting new possibilities they can bring. However, they may also come with a few downsides as well. Let's take a look at some of the different pros and cons. Pro, generally reducing accidents and congestion. Most accidents on the road are due to some form of human error, whether it's distraction, impaired driving, or poor decision-making. Self-driving cars will have faster reaction times, as well as the ability to communicate with other self-driving cars, which could help them to avoid accidents and even reduce traffic jams. Con, even with lower odds, accidents can still happen due to technology malfunctions or humans driving other cars. And if accidents do happen, who would be at fault? The manufacturer or the car's owner? Pro, self-driving cars have the potential to completely change our commutes. Since there's no actual driving required, you could use this time to work on the go, incorporating your commute into your workday. But if that's not an option, or if your commute is particularly long, you could use that time to watch TV shows, check social media, or even sleep. Con, as with many other emerging technologies, they're going to eliminate some jobs. It's predicted that millions of professional driving jobs will be wiped out, including both truck and taxi driving. It's also possible that related fields like car insurance and auto repair could be affected. Even though new jobs will emerge during this transition, it could prove to be a difficult time for many. Pro, parking will be less of an inconvenience. Whether you're in a busy parking lot or looking for a spot downtown, your car has the potential to drop you off and then go find a parking spot on its own. or maybe even just circle the block while you run a quick errand. Con: self-driving cars are going to be pretty expensive. Hardware, like cameras and sensors, and the software required to process the incoming data could make things fairly pricey. After their release, the prices may come down, but they may still be more expensive than traditional cars. This may mean that car ownership decreases in the future, with people opting to rent self-driving cars only when they need them. Owning a car might even become obsolete. The future's uncertain, but whether we like it or not, the rise of driverless cars is bound to transform transportation in one way or another.
Okay, so how many of you are excited by self-driving cars? Once again, by a raise of hand using the reaction on the Zoom, how many of you are excited and think it is absolutely one of the most amazing things ever? Okay, excellent. So there's some of you, and I agree, it would be a wonderful thing to behold, right? And there are some cities in California where Uber is using self-driven cars to transport people. But while it is very easy to get so mesmerized by the advance in technology, let me ask you a question, okay? And the question is, the pro of not having to look for a parking space, does it really overweigh the con of people losing jobs? Okay, and remember, this is many people, thousands of people who will be losing, like truck drivers and taxi drivers who will be losing their jobs. And if we don't have something in place to support these drivers to find new job or to support their family, think about what kind of social implications that might have. And right now, data science does not give you that solution or an answer to that question. Okay, the other important thing that was brought up in this video as a con was that right now, data science also doesn't tell you whether, when there is an accident, when a self-driven car gets into an accident, who is liable? Is it the owner or is it the company that made that car? Okay, so we are all, it is, and also at the end of the video, you heard that whether we like it or not, self-driven cars is the future. We are moving towards that future. So then the question becomes, like, we are moving towards the future where we are no longer certain of our responsibilities and accountability for our actions. Okay, and I think a lack of accountability and a lack of responsibility in the products that we use, we have already seen issues in the use of social media, in the use of Facebook, in the use of Twitter. Okay, and how misinformation is being spread using these platforms due to a lack of accountability. So these are questions. So while, like, you know, the products of data science are amazing, they are mesmerizing, they are desirable, there are questions that data science have yet there are questions that are not yet providing. Okay, because data science simply isn't there yet. Okay, and there are products of data science that can create social upheaval. Data science does have that power. Okay, even if it does not have the solutions to answer some of the big questions. Okay, so moving forward, another possible product of data science is policies. Right now, and policies can be, like, you know, in different cases, it can be policies on how to run a business, how to run a company, how to hire and fire people. It can be policies on healthcare, how to administer vaccines. It can be economical policies. It can be social policies. So policies can be another possible product of data science, even though right now, policy as a product of data science is still haven't come to the forefront yet. And currently, policy is still being motivated by theories and philosophies and our understanding of human morality or humanity, what it means to be a human being. But soon enough, you can see, and once again, it is very desirable to use data to create policy, or to use data and theories and philosophies and combine that to make policies going forward, right? And once again, and because, like, generally speaking, to us, data is very factual. To us, data is very objective. So we should be using data science, right? But once again, we face similar issues as the self-driving car. And I'm going to use this as a segue to kind of talk about some of the current shortcomings of data science, and which we as data scientists, or we as people doing research, should be aware of. Okay. So remember, like I showed this diagram. Let me bring up the laser here. So remember, I showed you this diagram as a definition of data science, and I told you that statistics and computer science are the tools that are driving driving data science forward. But often we don't talk about domain knowledge, okay? So let me give you an example of domain knowledge, and I'm going to use healthcare informatics. And in healthcare informatics, in addition to statistics and computer science, domain knowledge kind of blows up into these two other fields, which is called healthcare and information science. So healthcare is basically trying to prevent diseases, trying to predict when a breakout will happen, trying to predict when a pandemic will happen, trying to decide what the best treatment strategy for a particular patient is. That's this field right here. Whereas this field, information science, here is about making sure that the patient of the data is secure, how it is being stored, whether consistency is being maintained, like consistency of the data being stored is being maintained, and things like that. Okay. And when you kind of combine these two fields with computer science and statistics, you have an explosion. Okay. And healthcare informatics kind of breaks down into these subgroups of bioinformatics, biomedical informatics, medical informatics, clinical informatics, nursing informatics, pharmacy informatics, and many other informatics, right? And why is this important? The reason this is important is because, remember, with domain knowledge, there is an expert for that domain. Okay, and even though all these subfields fall under healthcare informatics, you cannot have an expert from an expert who specializes in bioinformatics also guide a research that is addressing clinical informatics. So the experts in each one of these subfield is different. Okay, and when doing data science, it is very, very important that we have an expert guiding us, guiding the research based on the domain knowledge. Okay. And this is within the definition. This nuance is built within the definition of data science. And remember, the reason this becomes complex or complicated, or a nuance of data science, is because experts are very difficult to find. Okay, and it's not only just in healthcare, right? It's any expert, like, their time is valuable. They have a lot of other things to do. So getting their feedback for your research is a very difficult thing to do. Okay. And just another reason, why this subfield creates an issue in data science is because, even though they're all healthcare informatics, each one of these subfields have a different data type. They address different problems, okay, at different levels. As a result, the way we analyze the data or handle the data will vary drastically among these subfields, as will the type of conclusion we can make from them, as will the application, okay? And here, once again, like I showed you this image before, and this is like just one example of how varied this similar subfields can be. So for example, clinical informatics is about different parts of the body, different organs, the heart, the liver, the lungs. It's data from these organs, and then we analyze the data to say something about the organ itself. Whereas neuroinformatics focuses solely on the brain, and while clinical informatics is mostly time series signals, neuroinformatics has to do more with image data, images of the brain, okay? Whereas bioinformatics goes very deep down into living organisms and works with gene and protein data.
Yes.
And then social informatics basically works with human beings at a social level, at society level. Okay, and once again, here the data is mostly text, which is once again very different from all these other types of informatics. Okay, so even though I get my training generally as a data science, doesn't qualify me to work on clinical informatics or social informatics or bioinformatics, okay? Which is exactly why we need that. We either need experience, we need some kind of training, or we need that, or we need that expert in the domain field. Okay, and here is another example just to kind of drive home the nuances of, like, you know, this domain knowledge part of data science. So suppose we have an entity. This entity can be, in this particular example, is a seasonal seaside resort, okay? And on paper or in terms of data, it is described by this vector or tuple, whatever you call it. But what this is capturing is the profit that this resort is making during spring, during summer, during fall, and during winter. Okay, and this is how you may see the data. Right? So maybe in year one, the first year it opened, it made 25K in spring, 100K in summer, 50K in fall, 25K in winter, and so on and so forth. And then throughout the data, and while this might not be explicit in the data itself, but based on the year, you may have, like, you know, COVID-19 or the pandemic happening here, and this may not be explicit in the data set. And then you have years that separate the data set between pre-COVID and post-COVID, right? And suppose as the owner of this resort, I want to know today, right now, whether I should keep my resort open or not, or should I close it for good, okay? And if I'm coming from just an analytical point of view, or if I'm coming only from a data analytical point of view, or just from a statistical point of view, then I can take any one of these approaches to analyze the data. Okay, I can say, hey, this is a seasonal seaside resort. Its maximum profit is going to be during summer. The data supports my hypothesis that the maximum profit is during summer. So I'm just going to answer this question using profits from the summer, and I'm going to average over all other seasons, okay? Or another approach I might take is, hey, it seems to be making reasonable profits during all 4 seasons. So let me just separately compare the profits for all of this of 4 different seasons. And for each one of these 2 values, I can get a significant p-value, and I may be very good about making the decision based on this p-value about whether I should keep my resort closed or open, okay? However, an expert, a business expert in as a business owner or as a business analyst, one insight that come in is, yes, you did this analysis and they're statistically very sound, but they do not factor in the pre-COVID profits and the post-COVID profit. You are not comparing, you are not taking this event that occurred. And to me, that is more important. Okay, and if this is what the expert wants, or the expert needs to make the decision as the owner, like maybe right now I want to know whether I want to keep the resort open in 2022, right? And this is very important, right? In order for the seasonal seaside resort to decide whether it should remain open or closed. But if I'm trying to compare pre-COVID and post-COVID, now I can no longer just compare the profit between spring profit and summer profit, or summer profit and fall profit, or fall profit and winter profit, right? Now I have to somehow compare this entire tuple or entire vector with these tuples after that I'm getting after post-COVID, right? So now my single data point is no longer just a number, but now it's a tuple. It is multidimensional now, okay? And we really don't have a robust method in statistics that will give us a p-value for comparing tuples, okay? So what would be a p-value? What would be a confidence level that gives us the same kind of guarantee as a p-value? Okay, and so these are some of the nuances that domain knowledge incorporates within data science itself. Okay, so now let's look at the data aspect of the data science process, like, right, what can go wrong, right? I am saying data is the king, and the World Economic Forum is saying data is the new currency. Our intuition says that data is unbiased, right? What can possibly go wrong? And the way I describe it is data is lazy, okay? It is the king, but it is a very lazy king. And the reason I say that is because as a data scientist, you can give me one data set, but you can give me two opposing hypotheses, right? And as the data scientist, I can guarantee you for most data sets, I can make the data set fit both of these two competing hypotheses, okay? I shouldn't do it because my scientific integrity should stop me from doing something like that. Ethics, my sense of ethics should stop me from doing something like that. But data science itself or data itself doesn't prevent you from doing that, okay? And the conclusions you come to, the product you come to, absolutely is affected by the perspective with which you are looking at the data or how you are analyzing the data, okay? And we absolutely don't want to be in a situation where the data is telling us that the data is actually a tennis ball, but we are interpreting it as a sunrise. Okay, we absolutely don't. A data scientist should ensure that they are not this end, okay? Another example, this is once again a favorite meme of mine. If your data shows that there is a 9 and a 6 present, that should be your scientific report. That my data shows that I can have a 6 or I can have a 9 given the data I am given, okay? But most papers or most researchers right nowadays, and some of it has to do with the culture of publishing papers, is that if they want to show that there is a 9 in the data, they will push for the 9 and completely not talk about 6. Or if their purpose is to push for the 6 and show that the data has 6 in that, 6 is the pattern in the data, then they will only push for the 6 and not mention 9 at all, okay? And this happens in real life because oftentimes we are transforming the data into different dimensions, right? We are either pushing it to a higher dimension or we are reducing it to a lower dimension. And this can distort the information that is present in the data. And currently, there is no way of knowing like how to quantify that distortion. Okay, so that is something as a human being. So even though data is so powerful, data is very passive in that sense that it does not give us a sense of the distortion. And we as data scientists need to make sure that the analysis we are doing, it is being fairly represented by the data, the conclusion that we are coming to. Okay, and another important aspect is almost everything in life is a time series data. Okay, now in the time series data, the interval of time can be milliseconds, it can be seconds, it can be hours, it can be days, it can be years, it can be millions of years, right? But if we are just doing, if we only have the data for a cross-sectional piece, we are not seeing the entire picture. Like, we are not seeing the truth. And creating a product that is not based on the truth can have severe effect. Okay, so I'm not saying that, like, if you cannot, if you do not have the entire data, you cannot do any analysis. You can, for example, I can do a cross-sectional study in this for using the data I get from this time slice, but I should be careful in how I am interpreting the data, how I am presenting my results. I need to be aware of the limitations that is present in my analysis. Okay, and once again, data can nowadays solve almost any problem in any industry, but since data is so passive, we as human beings, we need to make sure that the data we are using are of high quality, that the data is giving us information that we want to work on. So for example, if I want to know the effect COVID-19 had on the world as a whole, but I only collect data from, say, Bangladesh or only from USA, then the data does not have the capacity to speak about the world. And since the data itself does not have the capacity to speak about the world, neither does your analysis. Okay. The other thing we need to understand about the analysis that we're doing is the product that we end up having. Is it just a result of an analysis, or does it have a value? So if you think back to the series word analysis and the domain knowledge part, analysis 1 and 2, they were results, and they were valid statistical results that we have obtained from the analyzing the data, but that wasn't very valuable to the domain. Okay, that wasn't very valuable to the expert in the domain. Right? So as a result, even if you are doing data analysis, if it doesn't add value, it will probably not get transformed into a product. Okay, and once again, like, the way we use data is highly driven by the application we want it to have. Okay, so these are some things we need to keep in, like some of the things that we need to keep in our mind as data scientists, which sometimes it's very easy to overlook. Okay, and the point that I'm trying to make is that, like, when we're, even before we go to the analysis part, we need data visualization. We need data, basically what I'm trying to say is we need to understand the data itself. We need data collection methods that represents the population. I'm going to address that soon again. We need ways of making sure when we're pre-processing the data, we are not distorting the information contained within the data. Okay, and at the same time, we need careful experimental design of when we're collecting the data. Okay, and the reason I want to point this out is oftentimes, most of the times as researchers, we tend to focus on this simplified view: data analysis, product. But if we don't do data visualization, data collection, like, we don't understand the data itself. And right now, there is very few researchers who are actually working on data visualization. There is almost no one who's trying to improve the way data is collected. Okay, most people who are not statisticians, they don't care about the experimental design, because remember, the way we collect the data restricts what we can use for what analysis and what product we can use the data for. Okay, and the same with pre-processing. So that is something, and so these four needs to become part of this entire process. Okay, but which it currently isn't. Okay. So let's now that we have talked about the data part of the data science process, let's move on to the data analysis part. of the data science process. And you can do data analysis either to like, come up with a new statistical model or a new machine learning model, or you can use it to like, use existing models on machine learning on a particular application, right? And what is important in this part, like I said before, is statistics and machine learning, which is a very important branch of computer science. So you will remember in my previous slide, I showed you that statistics and computer science are the driving force, and then machine learning is the leader in computer science for driving data science forward. So before I move forward, I just want to very briefly take a poll and see how many of you know what machine learning is. If there is even one person who doesn't know what machine learning is, I am going to spend some time describing to you the process of machine learning and what it does and what it gives us. So is there anyone who needs me to explain what is machine learning? Is there anyone who needs me to explain? Okay, so I am seeing a few hands, so let me kind of go to the end very quickly. Okay, so remember that machine learning is a field that has been evolving over the year, but traditionally speaking, there are two types of machine learning, okay? Supervised machine learning and unsupervised machine learning. And the name should suggest machine learning is simply a technique or a process of trying to teach a computer to learn. Okay, we human beings, since we were a baby, we have learned so many things, and no one had to tell us that you need to learn. You need to learn what is your name. You need to learn that this is a tree, that this is a sky. We do it automatically, but machines don't. We have to tell the machines that they need to learn certain stuff. And what we have found is that a machine is very good at predicting. So if you give it data of like all these apples, right? And then like say we do all this processing speed, we apply all these machine learning techniques or processes, then in the output, we want the machine to be able to say, hey, I see a new apple that may or may not be present in the data I saw, but I know I have learned that this that I'm seeing right here is an apple. Okay, so that is supervised machine learning, and currently machine learning has become very good at predicting things, okay, with very high accuracy. And another form of machine learning, once again, broadly speaking, is that I have this data, right, and but I do not know what each one of this group of data means, right? So I know that this is red, this has a leaf, this is yellow and long, this is roundish and long, but orange, not the same as this. So once again, the machine learning algorithm will kind of group similar information together. So even though it does not know that this is an apple or this is a banana or this is a mango, it can tell you that apple is different from banana and banana is different from mango and mango is different from apple. Okay, and this is basically why machine learning is so important or so useful. Okay, because it can sort out data in ways that is even difficult for a human being to sort, right? So it can take in a large amount of data, and it can sort this data into groups. And in some cases, it can tell us like, all this data belong to different groups of objects. Or in some cases, it can tell us, hey, this group is an apple. This item belongs to the group called apple, okay? So that is very like in a nutshell, that is what machine learning does, okay? And if you have more questions, I am more than willing to take questions at the end of the presentation, okay? So let's go back to where I left off, okay? So there, so we are in the data analysis part, and regardless of whether we are working in a theoretical realm or an application realm, the two tools that we are using, the most common tools that are used for data science are statistics and machine learning, right? And for those of you who are used to using statistics and those of you who are used to using machine learning, it is almost, we have a certain faith in these tools, right? Because if we find something to be statistically significant, we no longer question our result. If our machine learning model has a very high accuracy, we no longer question our model, right? We no longer have any doubt about the results we are getting. But let's look at how statistics and machine learning can mislead us, especially when we are trying to apply data science to practical scenarios, okay? So let's say this is the population I'm working with, and these black figures represent the majority group, where this orange figures represents a minority group, okay? It doesn't matter what are the identities of these two groups are right now, as long as you understand that one is the majority, forms the majority of the population, and there is another group that forms a minority of the population, okay? Now, suppose I'm in healthcare informatics and I want to propose a healthcare policy, right? Maybe the policy is regarding, like, you know, whether people should be vaccinated or should get a third dose of vaccine or not. Okay, and I take a sample from this population, okay, and I take a random sample which is statistically very relevant, and that is the scientific way to go about it. I randomly sample this, and my sample size is, say, like 10 to 20, just for the sake of the example, okay. Obviously in practice, you want your sample size to be as large as possible. But say for this example, my sample size is 10. And if I randomly choose this 10 samples from this population, I guarantee you that for every 8 of these black figures I choose, I'm going to get either 1 or at most 2 of these orange figures, if at all. Okay, so then when I use that sample and I use all my scientifically proven statistical method and machine learning method on the data from that sample, the result I am getting is only relevant to these black figures or this majority group in the population. I am almost completely removing the existence or the importance of the people in the minority group. Okay, and the reason that happens is because the innate nature of statistics and machine learning is to group data together. And when we are aggregating data in that way, and since there is only 1, 2, or no one representing this minority group, their data gets consumed into these other data points that play a higher role in determining whether this is a similar group or a different group. Okay, but remember that this minority group exists for a reason. Okay, more often than not, this minority group is probably genetically different from this majority group. Okay, they might be biologically different from these minority groups. Okay, sometimes it is on at a cultural level, right? And so, like, if my healthcare policy is only based on this majority group, and I am not doing anything in my analysis process to account for this minority group, then I am ignoring and neglecting, even though that is not my intention. And even though I am following scientific process completely from A to Z, I am ignoring these people, okay? And this does not apply only when we are talking about healthcare policy, right? It doesn't matter what kind of policies you are talking about, as long as it affects group of people, we need to be very careful. And I think if you followed COVID-19, like, you know, the news when COVID-19 was still, like, you know, affecting us greatly and it was in full swing, there were issues that arose because some of the vaccines were being tested on a particular group of people, but when it was given to another group of people, because they were biologically different, because they were genetically different, or because they were ethnically different, we ended up with many complications that we didn't foresee. Okay. So this is one way where even if you are 100% scientific, like following the scientific process, even then statistics can mislead you. Okay, especially when you want it to have a practical impact. The other problem, so that was one issue with statistics. Now let's look at why machine learning, or an issue with machine learning that can be a problem, especially when applying it to practical issues, right? And when I say ML, ML stands for machine learning. And currently, deep networks, which is a kind of machine learning algorithm, so most machine learning algorithms, including deep networks, and especially deep networks, are what we call black box models. Okay, and what I mean by black box model is that we have no idea what the machine is doing. Okay, so we have input, we feed the machine learning model data. The machine learning does its thing, it gives an output, and we get the output, but we have no idea what the machine is doing within the black box. And just to flush out that idea, let's go through an example. So suppose you are a human being making a decision, right? And even without me saying anything, you know that this picture right here is that is a peach, whereas this one is an apple. Okay. But how do I know that this fruit here versus this fruit here, they're different? Because they both are roundish in shape, they both have a reddish brown color, and they both have a stick right here sticking out of them in the middle, right? So how do you know this is peach and this is apple? Anyone wants to volunteer? You can raise your hand and unmute yourself, or you can answer in the chat. Like, how do we know? Yeah, go ahead. I heard something.
Well, I guess first of all there is color, and one have a leaf with it, and other one do not. And I guess the texture. That's why a human make decision.
Let's forget about the leaf, because even the apple can have a leaf sticking out of it, right? But you are right, it is texture, and it is our experience with the fruit that tells us that this fruit is dull in appearance, is more yellowish than reddish, whereas an apple is shinier, it has a smoother texture, and it will be bright red or dark red in color. And as a human being, we know this because we know this from our experience. Okay. But for a machine learning model, you do not see any of that, okay? Remember, I told you that a machine learning model is very good at predicting finding out groups of data. So at the best case scenario, as of now, the machine learning will say this is a peach, and the machine learning model will say this is an apple, okay? But it cannot tell you why it thinks this is an apple or why this is a peach, okay? Now, it might happen that all the data that the machine learning saw had the peach with the leaf sticking out, and all the data it saw of the apple had no leaf sticking out, okay? And the machine learning might very well think, okay, anything that has a leaf sticking out of it is the peach, whereas anything that doesn't have a leaf sticking out of it is an apple, right? But that is the wrong attribute to use when classifying these two fruits, because all fruits have leaf, right? It is hard to get a fruit that does not have leaf. That is not the characteristic of the fruit, right? There are other characteristics of the fruit, like we say, the texture, the color, the shape, all that those are the right attributes to look at, right, when classifying these two objects. But there is nothing in data science that helps us to look deep into the machine learning model and kind of make sure that the machine learning model is looking at the right attributes. Okay. And in the worst case scenario, right? I mean, this was the best case scenario, okay? And in the worst case scenario, we will have a machine, we can have a machine learning algorithm where the peach gets labeled as apple and the machine identifies the apple as the peach, okay? And once again, we have no idea why the machine learning model is misclassifying this, okay? And even when we're talking about peaches and apples, this does not seem like a serious backdoor, serious disadvantage of machine learning models, right? But let me give you two examples, okay? The first one, and this actually happened, and Google had a backlash against them. So Google had this face identifier, right? So they created this machine learning model which can identify faces, but it identified people, faces of African American descent as gorillas, okay? And that's seriously wrong. There's something definitely wrong with that machine learning algorithm. While it was great with identifying the faces of Caucasian people, it labeled faces of African American descent or African descent as gorillas. And that is socially unacceptable, okay? Now, let me give you another example, like how it may play out in the fourth industrial revolution, right? Like, remember, like we are moving towards automated processing. We are moving towards a future where like most of the things are done by machines. So now imagine like you go to a bank and you ask for a loan. Right now, today, you can talk to a human being, and if you are denied the loan, the human being can tell you, hey, you did not meet this criteria, this criteria, this criteria. That's why you don't have the loan. So in the next 2 or 3 years, you can go back, you can improve those criteria. So like you get a better score, and then you can get the loan in the next 2 or 3 years, okay? But now imagine if that human being is no longer available. If the decision, like whether you get the loan or not, is made by a machine, the machine is no longer able to tell you exactly why you were denied. It's just gonna say, hey, no loan, okay? What is that human being who was denied the role supposed to do then, okay? So these are some issues, like, that data science, even though it's so mesmerizing, like it becomes an issue at social level, or when you try to create products that affect a lot of other people. Okay, and my point is that when we are doing data analysis, whether we are using statistics or machine learning, we need to make sure that the analytical method that we are using, it is interpretable, it is transparent, and the results that we are interpreting, like we are carefully interpreting the results, okay? We are aware of the limitations, we are aware of where things can go wrong, and we are aware of the benefits of our analysis as well, the value of the analysis, okay? So one possible solution that, and once again, this is just, this is my opinion, like working on this field for over 10 years now. One possible solution that can at least address these issues that I talked about is simulations, okay? So nowadays, simulations are it's not in the forefront of research because it is not deemed useful, but and right now, you need to work on deep learning networks in order to get your paper published anywhere. But if we can combine simulation techniques such as cellular automata and genetic algorithm with other fields like game theory and topology in mathematics, I think the combination of these four things can ultimately play on the same level as deep neural networks or deep learning networks. And I have included links in case you are interested to go ahead and kind of get a basic idea of what these techniques are and why I think they are capable of handling deep neural or performing at a level of deep learning networks. One of the biggest issues with a simulation technique is that they take a lot of time, computing time, but deep learning networks also take a lot of computing time to train them. And also like with the advent of quantum programming or quantum computing, which is coming up in the next 10 or 20 years, it will become very easy to run simulations. And another reason, like, I think simulations is so much, it's much more transparent. And I think it's helpful, especially for practical scenarios or like, for developing products that can affect the population, is because like, I don't know whether you have heard about it, but there was a group of data analysts who predicted before COVID-19 happened that a pandemic was on the way. Okay, but no one gave any heed to that. No one paid any attention to those warnings. Okay, but the simulations clearly showed that a pandemic is coming and that the world at large is completely not ready to handle the pandemic. Okay, if only we paid attention to the results of that simulation, COVID-19, the way it happened, wouldn't have happened. Okay, we would have been prepared. And two other social, I don't want to say social changes, but like social dynamics that I see ongoing, which I think really would benefit from simulation, is the effect of cryptocurrency. Many people are like gambling. It's almost gambling on cryptocurrency. And once again, here's a paper that you can follow to see what cryptocurrency is. And the other notion is like, using blockchain technology to for voting systems, to make voting system decentralized. That's the promise that blockchain technology gives. But once again, like, before they're implemented in practical life, before they can be, before you trust them completely, I think like simulations can really help us. Like if we can simulate the effect it will have, it can help us like, weed out like, the pros and the cons before like we commit to them. Okay. So basically, towards the end of the, I'm almost towards the end of the talk. And here's a much less simplified data science process. So we have data analysis, we have product, but there is all these other issues that need to be handled in data science that data science currently doesn't provide a solution for before data science is ready to answer questions like the questions that arose when you saw the example of self-driving car, or before data science can actually create policies. Before I end, I just want to make sure that, like, for those of you who are reading the slides carefully, you will see that I have careful experimental design for both data and data analysis process. Okay, and the reason I have it there for both of them is because these two experimental designs are separate. Okay. And what I mean by separate is that people who are collecting the data absolutely has no idea how the data will be used, and people who are using the data absolutely has no idea what the data collector had in mind as to the purpose of the data. Okay, this communication is lacking, and which is why currently these experimental designs, they are separate. Okay, hopefully in the future, it will all be part of one experimental design, but right now they are different, and we do need careful experimental design to make sure that the analysis we're doing and the data is actually supported by the data. Okay, and this is just my vision for another data science product, which I think it can help a country like Bangladesh to move forward, and that is like, if we can build a generation of good data scientists, who are not only creating new models, but are also very educated on the benefits and the caveats of data science. I think we can build a very strong generation, and we can then and that generation then can work on outsourcing their talent. So get data from different parts of the world and outsource. And I think that can also become a very good source of revenue for the country. So questions.
Well, participants, if you have any question, you are requested to raise your hands using the system and the reaction buttons, and I'll request you to ask your question. First, I'm requesting Ms. Moshumi Sharmin to give a brief introduction of yourself and then ask the question. Thank you.
Thank you, Tanjila, for giving me the opportunity to say something. Am I audible to you?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, this is Moshumi Sharmin. I work at BIGM, and I would also like to thank Ms. Rittika for sharing great ideas and also sharing it with ReForm. Actually, it is not a question. I have two queries as you are working with data. So as a layman, I want to ask you that whether we are ready for fourth industrial revolution. You have given examples at the very beginning of your presentation that cars without drivers. So taking this as example, I want to just know that what kind of economic readiness is required for going through this kind of to initiate this kind of driverless cars, or whether there are any readiness, what should I say, readiness parameters to go for this, whether there are researches in this area, other governance issue and cultural readiness, these kind of issues are there, whether there are researches in these areas actually. I hope I could make my points clear. And another is, as we know, data is very much monopolized. It is to a very group of people, they are controlling it. And how will it affect the overall global security actually? I think we need much more researches in these areas also, because data is, we do not find data available everywhere to do researches. To a very limited group of people, this kind of information data is, they control this actually. So how
can
it
you
will affect the global security?
Can you expand a little bit more on what you said, like, certain groups of people control this? Can you expand on that a little?
Yeah, I can say that, because if we say about, though I do not have the clear concept about it, but if we say big data, it is controlled by a very limited group of people, because we cannot access those data. Say Facebook, Microsoft, or if I say a person, Elon Musk, they have all the access that for a what should I say, for research or for analysis, they could do this kind of researches or analysis, whether they are on a better condition than us, and whether this monopoly will affect the global security. And if it is in this way, then how we are ready to manage that.
Okay.
I hope I could make you understand what I want to know actually from you.
I will try to answer the questions as best I understand. Like, if I don't answer your questions completely, feel free to ask me again. So from what I understand, your first question was about whether we are ready, right? And when you are talking about whether we are ready, I personally believe we are not. Okay. And I don't think we are ready. Like, we are ready for the fourth industrial revolution. The fourth industrial revolution is already happening. Okay. And it is being driven by this data, right? The data generation, like, it is, you are generating data every single day. You are generating data this minute. The fact that we are recording this webinar, that's data. Yes. Okay. That is data to Zoom. So data is being generated every single day. And the advancement in technology, especially AI and machine learning, has made it possible to kind of analyze the data to a certain extent as the data is being generated. Okay, and in that respect, to technology and data generation, the world is moving towards that fourth revolution. Okay, but I think what you are trying to ask is, are human beings ready for the fourth general industrial revolution? And the answer to that is no, they are not, right? But then again, human beings were not prepared for the first industrial revolution, the second industrial revolution, the third industrial revolution, right? Human beings or societies were not equipped to deal with that either, right? So we will see unemployment, we will see depression, we will see all these other economical issues and social issues that arise from this fourth industrial revolution. And the part of the point of my presentation was that we cannot rely on data science. So even though data science is driving it, right, we cannot rely on data science alone to come up with the solutions, right? Because data science is not there yet. And so you will inevitably, there will be issues, there will be strife for humanity that with the fourth industrial revolution will bring forth. Okay. So parameters, right? The other thing you mentioned,
readiness parameter, actually, yeah.
Come again?
Readiness parameters, that whether human beings are ready or what kind of parameters are needed to cope with this kind of scenario.
Okay, and that's a very broad question, okay? And once again, it depends on the application area, okay? Let me just talk up, just to give you an idea about how unready the current society or current human beings are to deal with this fourth industrial revolution stuff. Let me give you the example of social media. I'm pretty sure each and every one of you in this webinar uses some kind of social media, whether it is Instagram, whether it is Twitter, whether it is Facebook, whether it is Snapchat, and some of you will have account in all of this, or at least two of this social media, right? And one thing I can tell you, that one of the current reason, I don't know whether you were aware of the current climate in US right now, but right now within the general population, there is a polarity, okay? And this polarity, where many people traditionally will blame capitalism for it, but the current polarity was created due to how social media is being used, okay? And how the lack of regulation of this social media, because social media, Facebook, Instagram, they do not have to follow the same level of integrity as a newspaper or as a magazine, okay? Anyone can say anything on social media, and the fact that so many people are using social media makes it more influential than any other news media out there, okay? And I am just giving you an example of one particular country, okay? But this is playing out in every country itself, okay? And US did suffer highly in the last couple. I'm not going to go into the details of it because I try not to talk about politics, especially in workplaces.
It is already 9:20 and there are a lot of hands. I would request to take all the questions and then answer. I think that way we will manage the time better. So I would request Tanzila to go one by one and request Rittika to note down the questions and make short answer. Actually, there is no scope to give elaborate answers. Okay, over to Tanzila.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, sir. I guess we should move on to the next person. Actually, there is another hand I'm seeing right now is of Srijan Bonik. Please introduce yourself briefly and ask your questions. Mr. Srijan Bonik.
Brief. Everyone should be very brief.
Yeah, okay, sure. First of all, thanks so much for a wonderful work through of the data science. I really loved your presentation, ma'am. And I am an undergrad student at Prague University, and this is my senior year. So my question is actually a little less complicated. It's about how I get started with doing independent research work as an undergrad student in data sciences. Because most of the time, what we are basically doing is when we're doing our thesis, maybe working with a professor or something like that in a group. But if we want to do multiple research, it's important to get started with independent research work too as students. So what would be your advice to get started with that? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Srijan Bonik. Now I'm going to Mr. Mahdi Al Mobin. Please introduce yourself briefly and present your queries.
Hello, assalamu alaikum. Am I audible to you?
Yes,
Yes.
please go ahead.
I am Mahdi Al Mubin, currently associated with BIGM as a research associate. My first question is on the joblessness nuance that you have told about automation. There has been studies in Boston University by various economists like James, where he has shown that the advent of ATM machine hasn't substituted banks. Rather, it has doubled the amount of banks that has been established from 1970 to 2000. Would you please explain on that issue? And my second question is regarding the drug discovery. Would you please explain how data science can be used for drug discovery? And that's all.
Thank you very much, Mahadi. Now I'm requesting Mr. Nitun to raise his question or queries, and please introduce yourself.
Good evening, madam. This is Nitun Poddar, newly recruited research associate at BIGM. I have some basic question, and I want to also share one of my research plan with you in the field of bioinformatics and machine learning. First, I want to put my question, and the question is there any need of encryption technique, means cryptographic protocol in data science? If yes, then what types of models are frequently used in data science?
Can you please repeat your question? And is there a need for what?
Is there any need of encryption or decryption technique, means cryptographic protocols in data science? If yes, then what types of models are frequently used in data science? My next question is, as an engineering student, particularly computer science, I can realize that there are a lot of gaps between academic study and industry level work in the perspective of Bangladesh mostly. And how can we overcome this gap? And my final question is actually not question. I just want your valuable suggestion or advice, madam, for young researchers, that how they start research in data science, or what are the prerequisites to start research on data science. Thank you, madam.
Thank you, Mr. Nitun. Now I'm requesting Mr. Ashti Nawaz Khan for his queries.
Good evening. I hope I'm audible.
Yes.
I am a research associate at BIGM currently, and thank you for the time you've given for this webinar. My question is more similar to Moshe ma'am's in adaptation to the fourth industrial revolution. You see, over the past 30 years, Southeast Asian countries and many North African countries, we never really experienced the second or first industrial revolution. We immediately jumped onto the third, largely because we can see the learnings from the more developed countries. How do you think the adaptation process would be for these lower middle income countries when it comes to the fourth industrial revolution, as some countries such as China are already jumping onto the fourth industrial revolution at full speed? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ashti. Since I'm not seeing any new person, I'm requesting Dr. Rittika to address the questions. Thank you.
Okay, so once again, I'm going to answer these questions very briefly. And if I do not answer your question fully, feel free to reach out to me. My email is on the slides. I can share the slides, or I can share.
I raised my hand. You haven't seen. No, please. Am I
Sir,
audible?
I thought, yes, sir. I'm really sorry about that. Sir, please
Yeah.
raise your question or query.
My quick, short, quick questions. First, what role mathematics has with this whole, the definition of data science and the domains and all these. To me, it seems that the role of mathematics is somehow overlooked. And my second comment is, yes, data science has pros and cons, but without having, the following the direction of data science that is the developed countries is following and the fourth industrial revolution is following, I think no country can move forward into a higher development trajectory. What is your comment? Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Actually, in the meantime, I'm seeing two more hands. I'm requesting Ms. Fatara Zahan to ask her questions or queries and introduce herself.
Hello everyone, here is Fatara Zahan from BIGM. Thank you, Ms. Angela, for moderating the webinar, and my sincere thanks to Dr. Rittika for the interesting talk, which various new areas and perspective we heard from her. Thank you very much. As she mentioned that policy is a product of data science, and humanity desirable to create policy to going forward. So we should use data. So are there any specific challenges to the use of data science in government and policy making compared to other fields such as computer science and statistics? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now I'm requesting Engineer Devashish Dash for his questions. And please introduce yourself before raising your.
Thank you, Speaker, for your wonderful presentation. I am Devashish Dash from BIGM. I have a curiosity. I want to know, is there any relations between data mining and data science?
Thank you very much, Engineer Devashish Dash. Now I'm again requesting Dr. Rittika to shed some light on those queries and questions. Thank you.
Okay, so before I start, like I'm seeing there's only 2 minutes left, so I just want to know like how long you guys are willing to extend and stay behind for me to answer the questions. I mean, is there a time limit I should be following right now?
Well,
and there's no way I can answer all these questions in 2 minutes.
Sure. Yeah, sure. Actually, we have time as long as you can, you're willing to give us. Because we all know that there is a time difference between our country, and you are the most busiest person, actually busiest person among all of us. So as far as you're comfortable.
I'm not the busiest person. I think everyone here is busy, and I think most of you need to go to bed soon. I'll do my best to answer these questions as briefly as possible. But if you feel like you need to, talk to me more, I'm more than willing to talk to you about this. Once again, I'll share my contact information with Tanzila Po, and you can get my information, my contact info from her, and we can communicate through email, or we can set up Zoom time to talk about this more. Okay. So I think that one of the first questions that came up was about doing independent studies, and about how do we even start doing data science? How do we from where we are, how do we start getting to data science? And the first thing I want to say is in order to be a data science, you need to be good in programming, like Python, very important. Python, MATLAB, R. These programming skills you need to have. And the other thing that's very important is statistics, right? understanding, interpreting statistical results, having a good idea about what statistics is. If your school or if your college does not cover machine learning algorithm, there are online courses such as Coursera, where you will find machine learning courses or data science courses for different levels, for beginners, intermediates, and for higher level data science. Start there. Okay, start at the beginner level and then work your way through. They need to be so most of the courses requires you to pay a certain amount of money in order to access all the materials in the course, but Coursera also has the option for you to audit the course. So even though you may not get the support from the staff who created that course for you, you will still be able to audit the course, okay? And that's always, I mean, even now today, like if I need information about a certain technique that I don't know before, I usually go to Coursera first and find the course that kind of addresses, talks about the topic I need. That is one. The other one is there are a lot of, like, it is true that we don't have big data, access to big data like someone working on Facebook or someone working in Amazon, or like, you know, the way Elon Musk has access to Twitter data or any other kind of data. That is true, but there are still data set available to us, okay? So for example, Kaggle is a very big site that has a lot of data. So researcher, one of the biggest push forward, especially in the current age, is that like anyone who collects data, they do their best to make that data public. Okay, and there are many public domain data sets such as Kaggle, UCI repository, and that one is just, it has data sets only for machine learning data sets, and you can find a lot of big data there. And another, if you are interested in healthcare, there's another data set called the MIC3. It keeps evolving, but anyway, there are public data sets out there. So as I say, like, get your hands dirty, like dive in, understand the different aspects of this smaller data sets, so that like, you know, you can find, when you find someone who has access to a larger data set, you can show it in your portfolio, like your project portfolio or your resume, like, hey, look, I have done all these different analysis. I have worked on all these different kinds of data sets. I understand the nuances. So give me more data so that I can work on it. Okay. So that is one. There was one question about banks. I'm not sure I understood the question about the number of banks, and that's fine. And it's true that maybe the number, but remember that the number of banks didn't go down in the past few decades, but remember, data science isn't there yet. Okay, so data science isn't at a place yet where it can reliably tell you, like, hey, give loan to this person, but don't give loan to this another person. But remember, I did talk to you about virtual assistant, virtual investment assistants. So the banks themselves are moving in that direction. They're moving towards that virtual assisting systems. Okay, so there will, I don't know if there will come a time, but it is possible that there will come a time when you see a reduction in these physical banks. Okay, or not physical, physical bank centers, not banks themselves, but physical bank centers. Okay, because banking sector is one sector that is moving more and more towards automated processing of data, especially because of the large number of people, like, you know, the amount of data that they have to use. Okay, the other one was how data science can be used in drug discovery. In order to understand that, you need a bit of background information in chemistry. So if you want to talk more about, I don't know the person who asked that question, whether that person has the background in in chemistry, but, like, you know, feel free to contact me if you want to talk more about drug discovery. We can definitely talk about that more on a different Zoom session or over email. Okay. is the next question I'm seeing is there a need for encryption and decryption in data science? And the answer is yes, absolutely. So like, you know, when most of you are use eBay, sorry, not eBay for like, you know, buying or selling things, you use Amazon for buying and selling things. Some of you may even use online banking, and even like, you know, the Facebook password that you use, the only reason right now, like, you know, the people cannot hack, like, you know, the only thing that prevents from adverse attackers from attacking or like, you know, stealing your password is because there is a certain amount of decryption and encryption going on. Okay, and in terms of encryption of data and protection of data, especially in this online system, is very important. Two things I'll say is that with the advance of quantum computing, like if, for example, someone creates workable quantum, like we do have workable quantum computers right now, but say someone figures out how to make quantum computers to decode, encrypt and decrypt like all these codes, our online system is going to go down, 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 down. So if you're interested in encryption and decryption, I'm going to say, like, you know, look into quantum computing as well. And one thing that another, like, you know, not like encryption, decryption, that's like very important in data science is like how we can create models, or how we can create data sets that can like, you know, which we can process and still get information out of, but like, you know, keep it safe at the same time. And one of the techniques we use there is data perturbation. And once again, I can go into more details into all of them over email or over another Zoom talk. Then there was another question about academic and the industry gap. And you are very right, there is this gap. And one thing I'll tell you is that because data science is so computer science dependent, and because computer science is so dependent on the industry, data science is to a certain extent molded by industry, okay? And academic processes usually follows the industry, okay? So that is how currently data science is kind of what should I say, like kind of closing the gap in that sense. But usually the leaders are the industry, and especially if you're in data science or computer science, like regardless of whether you are industry or academia, if you want to reach a good level, like if you want to get promoted, you have to produce papers. Okay, so producing paper is no longer just an academic job. If you want to be a researcher in Google, if you want to be a researcher in Facebook, if you want to be a researcher in Amazon, you have to produce papers. Okay, that is one of the things that makes you stand out, and one of the ways that industry influences the academia. Okay, I don't think I addressed your question directly, but once again, we can talk more about it in a separate session. I think one of the question was how Southeast Asia about jumping some revolution and can adapt to the fourth industrial revolution. And once again, my answer is make sure the next generation are good data scientists, right? Because once again, these developing countries like Bangladesh, they are not going to, like you saw in the video, in the self-driving car, like the self-driving cars are going to be more expensive, much more expensive than the current cars, right? To the extent that even people in the developed countries may not use cars anymore, okay? So, so one of the ways you can make sure that you are keeping up with the fourth revolution is by inserting yourself or inserting your next generation into the entire process of data science, like making sure that that group of generation can handle data, they can handle analysis, they can handle theory, they can handle application, and they understand value of the product, right? So, and that encompasses a lot, right? So that is definitely one way you can keep up with it. The other way you can keep up with it is like going away from the sense of individual ownership to a sense of social ownership. So right now, one person owns one car, but what if instead of one person having one car, what if the entire family had one car? Or what if, like, you know, one building had one car? Okay, figuring out those scheduling, right? Because it becomes because then the cost becomes divided between different families, so you still have access to that car. But and like some of it, I mean, and some of it you are seeing, I'm sure, like I heard that in Bangladesh you guys have ride sharing, but like I think the issue there in Bangladesh is about safety, right? How safe it is for you to, so but, and once again, remember that in that case the issue is no longer a data science issue. When it becomes an issue of safety or social safety or personal safety, it's no longer a data science issue. That is something else needs to compensate for that. Okay. What is the role of math in data science? Okay, so it is true. So far, the role of statistics has been huge in data science. The role of computer science has been huge in data science. But the funny thing is, like, even the role of computer science has been limited to machine learning in data science. Like a lot of the traditional issues, like a lot of the traditional fields or tracks in computer science, like algorithm and data structures, they're kind of going away because of this focus in data science. And I do think that is wrong. And I do think currently data science has hit its peak, okay, with deep networks. We have deep networks, they're great. And remember that deep networks are basically optimizing agents. So they are doing math, right? So it's in that sense, math is not completely out of data science. It's just a very specific part of math that is coming into data science, which is optimization. And the funny thing is, like, data science has already hit that wall, right? Deep learning networks are great optimizers, like the best optimizers there is, but there are issues, right? And some of the issues I did describe in my presentation. And we can talk about it more in a different cases, how math can be used to handle some of the issues that deep networks have it, and how to break that wall. So I think math will become once again very important in breaking that current barrier facing deep networks. And then the other question was, once again, I'm not sure I understood this question correctly, but I think the question was, data science has all these caveats, has all these benefits, but there is no way to move forward if we don't develop data science. And that's exactly right. We have to take data science seriously if we want to keep up with the world. But the good news for Bangladesh is that since the developed countries are kind of driving these changes, or like introducing this technology and driving these changes, countries like Bangladesh can learn from the mistakes that are happening in these developing countries. As a matter of fact, I think all the issues that we already have with self-driving cars and social media, okay, those are issues enough. So if Bangladesh can find a way, or if we can build a group in Bangladesh that can, like, you know, use data science while being aware of these caveats, I think that will help to mitigate a lot of the issues that the developed countries are facing right now. And I think that's the way to move forward. Like, so yes, I'm not asking you to not use data science. Definitely use data science, but be aware of its caveats. Make sure you bring people from these expert domains to work on your team. So make sure, and they are addressing each and every caveat as you go, right? So do not simplify especially when you want your data science product to have an effect on society. Do not try to take a shortcut, okay? Incorporate all these expert opinions. Listen to more than one expert opinion. And this is a time-consuming process, the solution I'm proposing, right? So if you don't go this route, you will go through similar issues that the current developed countries are facing with data science and the social issues, right? I think there was the other question was policy challenges in data government versus CS and statistics. Okay, so once again, it's the same thing, right? Computer science and statistics, they are only for analysis, right? Traditionally speaking, computer science and statistics, they do not affect people, right? Any new computer science model I have, any new machine learning model I have, the model or I create, the model does not affect people until and unless I try to apply it to a data set that affects people or that was collected from people, right? It does not affect people until and unless I try to make an inference from my result and I push it onto the population, right? So computer science and statistics by nature and by definition and by tradition is kind of insulated. Even mathematics, it's kind of insulated from effects of society. So computer scientists and statisticians, they don't need to worry about all these social issues that can come up, okay? But people who are governing people, okay, they need to make sure that whatever we are doing is being done for the good of people. Okay, it is done to improve the living standard of people. It is done so that no one in the population is being neglected, no group in the population is being neglected, and things like that. So that's why when we try to take statistics and computer science and math and whatever tool we are using, whenever we try to take that out of its traditional context and kind of try to apply it to social issues, extra thought and extra thinking, careful consideration needs to go into, and that process needs to be guided by the welfare of people. Otherwise, we will have really good technology, high technology, but we will lose humanity. Okay, and that's part of some of the things you were seeing play out in some of the developed nations right now, right? Because, and it's not that they are bad people, it's just that they didn't predict that this was going to be issue of the technology or the innovation that they came up with. So it's very much like the nuclear bomb, right? So when the scientists came up with the nuclear bomb, they didn't think it was going to be used to wipe out Hiroshima and Nagasaki, right? And like the scientists, I'm sure all of you have heard about Albert Einstein. He literally went into a period of depression, right? Because he didn't think his invention would be used for something like that, right? So like these issues has always been there, but it has never been handled before. But right now, with the progress of technology and with the way we handle and analyze data, we can start addressing some of those issues while the invention is being made, right? So we don't need to wait until the effect of it to address the issues. We have that processing power now, right? We can start addressing those issues. The other question was that's a very interesting question. What's the difference between data mining and data science? So personally speaking, there is no difference, okay? Personally, they're the same thing. Data science is just the more buzzword for data mining. Data mining was the term that was used a few years earlier when machine learning was the new buzzword, but now it is data science. Part of it is because but when you are talking to people in industry or when you are trying to sell your resume, I say use data science, especially because data science kind of encompasses advanced analytical modeling, which kind of takes which kind of tells the other person you are communicating with that you know machine learning, you have worked with machine learning before, you are comfortable with machine learning. Does that make sense? Whereas data mining, right now, currently, people don't know whether you are talking about using statistics, but whether you are talking about descriptive statistics, whether you are talking about advanced statistics. So data mining kind of encompasses all of that. But if you use data science, then people automatically know that you are talking about advanced statistics. You're talking about advanced machine learning. Does that make sense? But personally, like in terms of conceptuality, like they are both the same. Does that make sense? I think that's all the questions I had. And like any other questions, like anyone who wants to talk to me, like I'm more than willing to talk to you over email.
Rittika, there is actually another question by Ms. Nafisa Tasmin. She was seeking if you have, she's actually currently doing masters from University of Dhaka in mathematics. And she's requesting if you could refer her some books on machine learning and data science for beginners.
Book.
Some books to read.
So there is a book called Machine Learning by Tom Mitchell. I highly suggest. Tom Mitchell is like the father of machine learning. And he explains machine learning like without like all the jargon and without all the mathematical complexities that's come into machine learning. But he still manages to like, explain machine learning in a way that's easy to understand, but like at the same time you understand the kind of math you need to know in order to move forward in machine learning. So that would be so Machine Learning by Tom Mitchell. That's the book I suggest everyone to as a beginner to begin.
Thank you very much, Apo. I'll actually search the book and give a quick link in the ReForm group for everyone's benefit. Now, actually, with this, I guess we're almost at the end of our webinar, and I'm requesting Mr. Nitun Poddar to give a vote of thanks. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. It was like wonderful. Like, thank you. I'm very honored that you invited me to your webinar series, and it was wonderful, like talking to you about like the things I have picked up over my research careers. And like I said, like I'm more than happy to talk to any one of you, like afterwards after this webinar. So like our discussion doesn't need to be like restricted to this webinar.
Not necessarily. Thank you very much, Apo, for giving us so much time. It's actually almost 2 hours. So, Mr. Nitun, are you hearing me?
Yes. Thanks a lot, Tanjila Sultan Apu, for giving me the platform. Before going to the vote of thanks, I just share one of my research plan related with bioinformatics and machine learning field, and just want valuable comments from all, especially Dr. Rittika Shamsuddin ma'am. Because of time limitation, I just shared the analytical approach of my study, and I want to share my screen. It is the very basic analytical approach of my plan, and I am very much new in research, and this approach is the combination of bioinformatics and machine learning approach. And my first plan is to analyze the TCGA data, the Cancer Genome Atlas program, as a TCGA dataset contains a large volume of data, particularly more than 50,000 genes with a lot of numerical values as parameters. And my first motive is to identify the most influential genes from the large dataset, and it will reduce the computational complexity and for further research, drug design and gene therapy would be more easy if I successfully identified the influential gene from the large volume of gene. And after identifying the influential gene, I performed some bioinformatics approach like comorbidity analysis. And by comorbidity analysis, I just try to successfully identify the comorbidities of particular cancer and some functional analysis like disease pathways and ontological pathways, and along with some macromolecule analysis like protein-protein interaction analysis and protein drug interaction analysis. And for the purpose of protein-protein interaction analysis, I can identified some hub proteins and some drug molecules by analyzing the protein drug analysis, interaction analysis. And in the machine learning approach, I just planned that I want to measure the survival analysis, and in this purpose I use the influential genes and the TCGA clinical data, and use a PL estimator and Cox PH regression model, and I just show the survival time of patients along with the gene of altered and normal form. And I want just my just valuable comments from Dr. Rittika Shamsuddin madam. And is there any suggestion to improve this plan?
Rittika, you are muted.
Actually,
Rittika, you are muted.
Oh, before I give my opinion, can you just tell me, like, at what stage of research, at what stage is your research at? Like, are you, like, have you completed the entire thing that you're proposing here?
Actually, madam, I am working on it, and I already done partially. And bioinformatics approach has already been done, and I just now planned for work with machine learning approach. And I have some papers with renowned journal and they are perform this type of work. And I just focus some limitation of that paper and want to improve something like identification of influential genes.
So from just seeing this figure, what I can say is that you seem to be looking at different things. However, I do not know your research statement, like what question you are trying to answer. Okay, that's something I don't understand. Also, I haven't worked with the TCGA dataset yet. So I will need to look into the description of the dataset to understand the scope of the dataset, and then I can give you an idea about about your methodology. So if you can send me this figure, your research statement, and maybe a one-page description of what you are doing and what you try to accomplish, especially with your I'm not sure what you are calling bioinformatics approach, and I'm not sure what you're calling machine learning approach. So I'm not sure like how you are dividing up the two approaches. So if you could send me a document, I'll go over it. And then we can set up if you have time, we can set up a Zoom, or you can answer some of the questions over email. I think then I'll have a better understanding of whether the research is going in the right direction or not. So far, just from this figure, it seems that you have thought about it and that you have a pretty good idea about what you want to do. It's just that I don't completely understand it just from this diagram.
Okay, madam, I will definitely send the total approach and the document I have, and then I want to discuss with you broadly.
And also, if you can specify which specific area you need guidance from, I think that will help me to understand how to help you better.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Now time for the vote of thanks. Honorable Director of BIGM, Speaker of today's webinar, participants, my respected colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, good evening. It is a great pleasure for me to propose a vote of thanks in this gathering. First of all, I would like to express my gratitude to Dr. Mohammad Tariq Sir, Director BIGM, former Senior Finance Secretary to the Government of Bangladesh, and former Alternate Executive Director, World Bank, for attending to this event. My thankful gratitude goes to Dr. Rittika Shamsuddin, Madam, Assistant Professor, Department of Computer Science, Oklahoma State University, USA, for being the speaker of today's webinar on importance of data science organized by ReForm. Data science is the field of study that combines domain expertise, programming skill, and knowledge of mathematics and statistics to extract meaningful insights from data. Data science incorporates various disciplines like data engineering, data preparation, data mining, perspective analysis, machine learning, and data visualization, as well as statistics, mathematics, and software programming. Data science enables companies to efficiently understand gigantic data from multiple sources and drive valuable insights to make smaller data-driven decisions. Data science is widely used in various industry domains, including marketing, healthcare, finance, banking, policy work, and more. Dr. Rittika Shamsuddin, madam, has mentioned some product of data science like home assistance, Google Translator, weather forecast, drug discovery, medical home monitoring, virtual investment assessment, etc. And also mentioned possible products of data science like self-driving car, policies, etc. It's really interesting. And from these examples, we can understand the importance of data science. Government, industries, public and private sectors need data to make careful decisions. Data science creates raw data into meaningful insights. Therefore, mentioned sectors need data science. A data scientist is a wizard who knows how to create magic using data. Therefore, it is imperative that data scientists exhibit a large set of skills that would allow them to master every aspect of the process. Finally, we have data, just need to process to get product. I would like to especially thank Dr. Rittika Shamsuddin, madam, again for your concise, in-depth, and well-organized speech. This has great value to us as it is the first episode of many more such events to come. I would like to especially thank the ReForm team, IT support team, audience, and the host to make today's webinar more attractive and efficient. Last of all, my special thanks and appreciation to all of my colleagues who gave their best to make today's event successful. I also acknowledge the contributions of all those who have spent their time and effort for this program. Once again, I express my heartfelt gratitude to the speaker to grace this webinar a grand success. Thank you all.
And also from my part, I'm thanking Dr. Rittika Shamsuddin for sharing her knowledge with us and giving us her valuable time, and also the participants for patiently listening to our webinar and making it a success. So this is the end, but I have two important announcements to make about our future work of ReForm. The most recent thing that we are going to do is conducting a training online using Zoom platform on R for Data Science, where we are going to train the participants on the basics of R using R for data exploration and data wrangling. So although this course will be basic, but it's prerequisite for the R for Data Science Part 2, which will actually encompass the most rigorous and advanced modeling using R, actually R Studio. So I'm really hope that who are interested in enabling themselves in data science and have some working knowledge on R, I'm really encouraging them to see our course flyer, and if you have any question, you can always contact us in ReForm or in the given numbers in the flyers, which is actually posted in our ReForm. Another announcement that I would like to make is we are actually going to arrange our second episode of the webinar series, and tentatively the title would be Natural Experiments in Energy Economics. Although it is specifically in energy economics, but it will also cover some gender-specific issues in Nepal. And actually, this will be presented by Dr. Dr. Rafiq sir. And this will happen. This webinar will be conducted after June 19, 2022. But the date is not fixed yet. But keep an eye on our ReForm group and ReForm page or BIGM page. With this, I'm thanking you all. And lastly, I'm thanking our Dr. Mohammad Tariq sir for actually making our ReForm so vibrant and valuable. And lastly, again, Dr. Rittika Shamsuddin ma'am, thank you very much. Without you, this webinar wouldn't have come to reality. Thank you very much. Thank you all. Have a very good night.
Thank you everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Nice
Thank you
meeting
very
you.
much.
See you guys. And my contact information will be with Tanzila Po. See you.
Thank you all.
Thank you,
all.
madam.
Tanzila
Thank
is
you.
leaving
Thank
us
you.
soon.
Oh, thank you.
But don't worry, Apu, I'm in
Okay, no
ReForm
problem.
and
Bye,
we'll
good
always,
night.
BIGM will always be in our hearts. So, yes. So, Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Assalamu alaikum.
everyone.
অম্লান কি ছিল নাকি? অম্লানরে তো দেখলাম না।
Sir, আমি ছিলাম।
Thank you, everyone.
না অম্লান, আপনার খবর আছে? Good night, everyone. Good night.
Thank you, sir. I'm leaving the meeting. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, sure.
Have a
Okay.
good night.
Thank you. Good night all.
Assalamu alaikum, sir.
দেখলাম না কাউকে। ওয়ালাইকুম আসসালাম।
সবাই ছিল মোটামুটি।
গুড। ভালো বলছে। ওকে, গুড।
স্যার, আপনার শরীর কেমন এখন স্যার?
স্যার,
পরীক্ষা আছে নাকি আপনার?
হ্যাঁ স্যার।
স্যার আপনার শরীর এখন কেমন আছে স্যার?
ভালো পরীক্ষা দেন, ভালো পরীক্ষা দেন।
স্যার দোয়া করবেন স্যার। স্যার আপনার শরীর কেমন এখন স্যার?
Getting better, not perfectly okay. Slowly, মানে very slowly progressing.
ইনশাআল্লাহ স্যার সুস্থ হয়ে যাবেন, আমরা দোয়া করছি স্যার।
Okay. Thank you. সবাই ভালো থাকেন। Good night.
Thank you, sir. Good night, sir.